The moment you walk in the Aquarium Gallery, you're confronted by a 700-gallon piranha aquarium. This tank is 8 feet long, 5 feet front to back, 28 inches tall, containing 30 red-belly piranha, which in my opinion are looking a little hungry right now. Within the aquarium is all natural plants. All within the back is cryptocorin. I believe, Carrie, you have crypts as well.
Yes.
And then all of the front is dwarf Sagittaria. It was never supposed to be in the sand here. The sand is a light dusting. I created an island of plants, which I thought was going to be amazing, and then all around the entire place was supposed to be a small amount of pool filtration sand. And by small amount, I mean at the deepest point, it might be 1 inch. So to see these plants shoot off runners into all of this sand is just absolutely incredible for me. If you look right here, you can see the bottom of the tank, but you can also see the roots of the plant shooting in or shooting around. And that's kind of how this entire tank operates. All these plants are adults. There is no maintenance required. I do not need to do any pruning or trimming or anything like that. They shoot off their own runners and propagate on their own. But I set this tank up about a year ago and grew the piranha out, I think, for like 3 years. Piranha are relatively slow-growing fish. This tank only gets better in time. I also don't know why this works. I don't do water changes. I don't do any sort of maintenance. It's literally, I just feed this tank and that's it. Absolutely amazing. Oh, there are some fake things. Of course, the tree branch, or these are tree trunks that I cut in half. They go from the top of the tank all the way through it. These are by Aqua Decor backgrounds. Oh, and if you use the code Joey15, you get 15% off the website. Always trying to mention that. Just because these are not cheap backgrounds, clearly, because they look real. However, this is everybody's favorite aquarium right now. It's one of my favorite, but certainly not my favorite. I have some cooler tanks. Before we get to that, I'm going to bring you out back, where I pull aside a black curtain into the adult video section. In here is a rack of 12 other aquariums. They're right now just quarantined. They're not scaped or anything, right? You can see there's like some wood in here. I'm just trying to sink it so I can use it to scape these tanks. Unfortunately, Tamara has overrun me with betta fish. There's 5 bettas, 1 in each, so she's taking over a little bit. And because of that, and because of her newfound love for bettas, I've decided to double down on that, and I'm going to build her own rack of around maybe 15, 20 betta fish tanks on a super cool rack with super cool ideas, but you guys know me. I also take moss from the big tank, the 700, and I tossed it in here just to grow it out, just to save it. I don't think I'll ever have to buy moss again. The reason why there's moss in the 700 is because of this tank, my Guppy aquarium. For those that are new to me and or have never, Carrie's channel, I built this entire racking system. Acrylic tanks, just some 2x6, built the filtration. They're all these tanks are plumbed into the same sump over here, but this wood configuration with all of this moss on it was originally in the 700-gallon piranha tank to grow it out. For some reason, moss loves to grow in that tank. For some reason, all plants love to grow in that tank. I think that aquarium knows it's the first thing that anybody sees when they come out here, so it's trying to do its best to look really awesome, and it is doing a good job. So currently we do have a bunch of guppies. We have some essential, I don't even know what these would be called, Carrie, you might know. They're just like tigers or something.
They're mosaic.
Okay, and then we have kois, and we have some females. We have about, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 guppies in here. 20 females, and then the rest would be males. So I'm probably putting too much stress on the females, but that's one of the downsides that I don't like about guppies, is that if you do get them, look, the males are just constantly hounding them. But over time, this will be a self-propagating tank. Every once in a while, I take chunks of Java fern or Java moss off of there. I grow it in my quarantine. I'll never have to get new fish for this tank. They're just going to continue to produce and continue to produce. This is my favorite tank out of all the freshwater tanks on the top rack. The top is fresh, the bottom is salt. We'll get to the salt in a second. This is another random tank. I don't know what I want to put in it. I don't know what I want to do with it. I don't know if I like the scape. We have a piece of Malaysian bogwood with moss tied to it. Some more cryptocorin and sage that we took from the piranha tank. I steal all my plants from that tank now. The piranha tank is so important to the life of the rest of the gallery. It provides so much for everything. I also grew this moss in there. I don't know what I'm doing with it. I enjoy setting up a tank and just messing around with scapes. I think that's the 4th or 5th scape. I think this is the only one people saw though. And I was just enjoying myself with the others. This, I hate it. I don't know what I want to do with it. I thought it was going to be a good idea. I cut this wood to be the exact height of the aquarium. I thought it'd be kind of cool to have a couple branches. These are 2 individual logs that are coming up out of the sand with more moss tied to it. Depending on the lighting of an aquarium, depending on the positioning of the moss, it will grow differently. You've seen it over in here where it's more bushy. Here it's more close cropped, and over here it's just like trying to reach for the sun. It all kind of depends. I don't know if we'll have this like this forever. That's probably why there's no fish in it, because I don't know what I want to do with it. But I'll be honest, now that I see Tamara with all her betas, I'm starting to think I want a beta, so maybe I'll put a beta fish in there. As for this, I don't know. I do have some fish in quarantine that you didn't see. A breeding pair I might put in there, but if I do, they'll destroy the tank because they are a Central American cichlid that will do some damage. This is Tyrese, the Fahaka Puffers aquarium. This is 60 gallons, 20 gallons, 40 gallons, 60 gallons. And then the 40-gallon sump makes it about a 220 gallon system. 6, 12, 180, 240, 240 gallon system. So even though this is only a 60-gallon tank, I wouldn't suggest putting a Fahaka puffer in there. They can grow up to a foot. He's about 8 inches right now, but he's on a 240-gallon system of water dilution. Over here we have some manzanita, 3 different pieces that I tied together with zip ties, and then I took all of his Anubias and piled it on top. One of the things that Tyrese likes to do, he's such a personable fish. He's a good eater, he's a good fish to have, very hardy, but he goes under. This is his doorway to his house. He's like a little hobbit. So he goes underneath of there, and he can swim behind this, and that's where he sleeps and lays down, and he goes into his little house and he sleeps down here. Very cool fish. Show you some of the other cool things that I really like. I've been doing some things that are like a little different, but very easy. None of this is hard to do. All those plants are Anubias. This is Java fern. This is cryptocorin. All of this is like very beginner, very easy plants to keep. The easiest plant to keep in any aquarium is algae. Would you believe it if I told you all of this is saltwater algae, different macro algae? We also have some bush algae or different hair algae. I don't even know what it's called in the aquarium in the saltwater hobby, but I leave it alone. This is dragon's breath, and this is like kind of looks like Valsaria. It's not, but within it, you think about a planted aquarium. What's one fish that definitely got to go in a planted aquarium for the most part? Neon tetras, cardinal tetras. So I thought to myself, what kind of looks like that in the saltwater hobby that is also cheap, easy to keep, hardy, peaceful? Green chromis. You can also get blue chromis. They'll be a little more expensive, but these guys shouldn't cost more than $5, which is relatively expensive. But when you're looking at a cardinal tetra, and they're like $2, $3 a piece, maybe you'll get lucky and find them for $1. But incredibly hardy, very easy to keep, but they do get a lot bigger than this. I'd say they're about a 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch right now. They'll get to about 2 to 3 inches long. They'll live for about 5 to 7 years as well. Now, obviously that's way too many fish for this aquarium, but when's the last time you had 25 fish and every single one of those 25 fish lived for the 7 years of life expectancy? I do think that, you know, there will be weaker ones. I think that we'll end up with maybe 10, 15 in here, who knows. We also have a stray clown that's in here right now, only because he couldn't handle the anemone tank. Not only is algae easy to keep, anemones are relatively easier when it comes to coral. And that's a theme that you're going to find with this entire racking system. Really cool tanks, something different, but super simple, super easy. There are 10 clownfish in here. I only see 4 now, but a lot of them are going up and into the rock. I built a cave system within it. There's about 10, 12 bubble tip anemones on here that enjoy dirty water, that enjoy being overfed. Of course, we don't want to have massive ammonia spikes or anything, but the... Sorry, I just love to watch the clowns just chase each other around in circles. They'll be really fast. Every once in a while, it'll be like, is there only 2 or 3 in there? And then all of a sudden, they all burst out, and there's 10. I think he might be... Okay, no. There's a little pocket in the rock up here, right in here from this background, that another one stays up in there sometimes. I caught him up there the other day, and I was like, man, that's a cool place to be. But the basic clownfish, also a very simple, very easy, very affordable fish to keep. You might be wondering what type of equipment. I am using cheap Amazon lights from Amazon. I think this was like 40 or 50 bucks. The salinity in here is 1.023. As for filtration, sometimes I run my saltwater tanks off canister filters, hang on the back, sponge filters, you name it. These guys are all on a sump though, and the only thing that separates that sump from the freshwater sump is a protein skimmer. Protein skimmer is kind of like the secret weapon to saltwater, where it will remove excess proteins and help with water quality. But for the most part, once your saltwater tank's established, it's darn near the same as freshwater, yet because they have the type of equipment that they do have, you're not really going to do water changes. You're just going to top off the water, because obviously over time water is going to evaporate. Salt does not evaporate. So as the water is evaporating, if you don't replace it with more fresh water, the salinity in the aquarium is going to rise, which could be potentially detrimental. My favorite tank, my second favorite tank for the salt, and then finally this one. I don't know if we'll be able to see the Coral Beauty come out, but you can see why saltwater is so popular. The fish in it are just absolutely gorgeous. Within this tank, we have Duncan corals, that's what's all over these rocks, as well as the pulsing xenia. If you can't find this for free, it's like the Java moss of the saltwater hobby. You're going to put it in your tank, it's going to grow fast, it's going to be indestructible, and it's going to take over the tank in no time. You'll be removing it. So a lot of saltwater hobbyists don't like it, but I love it. Each one of these tiny little heads are pulsing. They're looking for food constantly, constantly, constantly. Absolutely incredible. Whereas the Duncans, they don't really move, but they do grow relatively quick and will spread throughout the entire tank. I've got a bunch of heads on this rock here. This is maple leaf rock for freshwater tanks. The background is a freshwater background. And of course, I just have a fine crushed coral substrate. The the Coral Beauty is also a dwarf angel, so they don't get very big. This tank is, I'm just kind of chucking some stuff in there. I don't know what I want to do with it, but I'm so obsessed with macroalgae right now that I'm putting macroalgae in everything. I bought a few little clumps, and now I have all of this and all of that. It grows incredibly quickly. We also should have a sea urchin in here somewhere. It's the black long-spined sea urchin. Yeah, right back in there. I don't know if you'll ever be able to see it, but he's a great algae eater as well. They are not venomous, but they are super cool to watch in the aquarium. But they can stab you, I guess. Each tank also has a little bit of a cleanup crew. I want to add in some crabs to all these tanks, but right now we just have some turbo snails in each tank. I need a lot more turbo snails, but that will come with time. Do you know why they're called turbo snails, Carrie?
Because they turbo clean the tank.
That's what I assumed. Now, for the tank that everybody knows, my 2,000-gallon aquarium, it is 10 feet long, it is 7 feet front to back, and it is 4 feet tall. Within it, we have 6 Oscars, we have 5 tigers, and a lutistic. Lutistic meaning that it just lacks all the other color pigment, but it is not albino. Albinos will have a red pupil, and mine, of course, does not. We also have some severums in here, which are just basically your green severums. Absolutely gorgeous fish that are slept on. You'll find these guys for like $5-6 a piece. Oscars, of course, you know, $5-10. But when you put these fish in a huge tank, it's almost as if they become a totally different fish. They're absolutely stunning and gorgeous. And then, of course, we have my Asian arowana. We also have a large sunshine pleco in there somewhere that Carrie has seen. Trust me, it's in there.
It is.
And then we also have a Beischer as well. All of which are getting along. Everybody's friendly. But I know what you're thinking. This tank needs more color. I got you. I was going to drive down to New York to get a specific type of fish. It's not this one, but this one's very close to it. I don't even want to say what I was going to go get because I still might go get them. I came across these guys at my local fish store the other day. You would think this is a parrotfish. Why are they still this red? At this size, a lot of times with parrotfish, they can lose that red coloration as a small fish. These guys are adults. We have a male and a female, in my opinion. I believe they're either King Kong parrots and or mammons, but they're certainly not 100% pure red parrot or parrotfish. You can tell by her mouth. Her mouth can close. Her mouth's not deformed. His kind of is. It's got that like little kissy face thing, a little duck face thing that the parrots have. These guys, once they're done their quarantine, will go in the 2000. I took Carrie the other day to 3 fish stores, and I was just looking for drop-offs. Sometimes people have to abandon and or want to upgrade or switch fish, and they take them to the pet store. You guys know how it works. And this was just a couple. That's how I got that lutistic Oscar. I do have other special fish that are going in the 2000, and the 2,000 gallon aquarium moving forward is just going to be something so fascinating, beautiful, and interesting to watch with some really cool fish that, okay, I know that the Asian arowana is expensive, especially my ultimate blood red, but everything else will be relatively affordable, and I want you guys to see what these big fish truly act like in a big tank. Will these two remain a pair? Will they breed in the 2000? I'm not sure. I know my severums are laying eggs, but I might have to take out my sunshine pleco because it is a omnivore leaning towards carnivore, and I know it's eating the eggs. The 2000 works so beautifully and it's done so nicely because everybody in it has the same diet requirements. But you might be asking yourself, Joey, where the hell are your rays?
Right here.
I moved them over here to a 375 so I could target feed them a little better and kind of condition them for breeding. They need a specific amount of food, a specific amount of times during the day to condition them, to make them seem like it's the wet season for the female to get conditioned to the point where she's like, okay, I can have babies because now I'm getting lots of food, conditions are perfect, but my male I think is just too small right now. In here we have a trio of black diamond stingrays, similar to the Leopoldi from South America, but this is technically a different species, not a variant. The black diamond, of course, will have tiny spots all over itself. They're not born with those, though. Each one of those clusters of tiny spots used to be a dot. The older these guys get, those big white dots explode into tiny dots. You'll also notice that underneath of them is patterned, whereas the Leopoldi, which is also black and with white spots, doesn't have those. It's not patterned underneath at all. My absolute favorite stingray of all time, I've had these guys for about 6 or 7 years now. The 2000 and the 375 are also connected onto the same system. So if I feed these guys before I feed the 2000 starts going nuts because they can taste the food. And vice versa for these guys. If I start dumping food in there, these guys go crazy. It's funny to see. Now I'd be lying if I said everything I've shown you so far is super cool. And it is super cool, but obviously I like cichlids. Come on over. This is a 180 gallon aquarium housing Frontosa, of course, from Lake Tanganyika. I don't know if everybody's going to be out right now, But the Frontosa is probably the poster child for Lake Tanganyika in Africa. And I think we have about a dozen in here. Absolutely gorgeous fish, and can be relatively expensive, especially if you're buying wild caught. I think at this point we don't need to buy a wild caught Frontosa because they're just so readily available. Still relatively expensive. However, they take forever to grow. I don't even remember when I got these. And my biggest one's not even out right now. Seems kind of boring just having Frontosa in a tank, bunch of big fish. Well, you can also, with Frontosa, have some other fish from Lake Tanganyika, like the African shell dweller. You guys will remember about 8 years ago, I did something called the Office Aquarium, where I built an acrylic aquarium on a rack. No, like into a bookshelf almost. And we stocked it with African shell dwellers. They do perfect in here. These guys interact and live within their shells their entire lives. If a Frontosa does get frisky or does want a little afternoon snack, they just dart into their shells completely. With that said, these guys are breeding. I didn't put in a ton of African shell dwellers in here. I think I just put in 8 or 12, something like that, just in case, because originally the Frontosa did grow up with the shell dwellers, and then as I had to move some fish around due to renovations, they lived without them for 3 months, and I was worried that if I reintroduced them, they might go after them. They did not. Now, I want to talk about my knife fish. It's within the knife fish family, the electric eel. This is my electric eel. He's about 30 inches long. Produces, once he's up to about 4 or 5 feet, can produce up to 600 volts of electricity. Several times the shock that you would get from an electrical outlet in your house. Everybody in the gallery, besides the saltwater and of course some of the smaller tiny like guppies and whatnot and the betas, all will eat the same diets, my homemade food, and of course pellets and dry foods and that sort of thing. And if you want to see me feed, not me feed, but Carrie feed every fish in the gallery, make sure you subscribe if you're not already. Let me know in the comment section below. It'll be interesting to see her feed, especially. I know she's going to be loving the guppies and a lot of the smaller fish, because to be honest with you, they're a tremendous amount of fun. In my opinion, feeding the big guys is always great. But within the next 3 months, this 2,000-gallon aquarium hopefully will be completed. We don't know, but right now it's perfect. And one of the things I kind of want to point out with is, like, when's the last time you saw a tank, like not this size, 2,000 gallons isn't that big, but why is everybody in perfect condition? The Oscars. You don't see torn fins, you don't see beat up fish. Why is this tiny little guy just perfect? It's just perfect. Everything in here is perfect, 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 and I love it. But it's not done yet. Anyways, if you guys want to see Carrie feed all the fish in the aquarium gallery, which I highly suggest you watch, because I'm going to make her do some things that I don't think you guys are ready for. Subscribe if you're not already. Carrie, I hope everybody sees you in the next video. I know I'm going to be in my next video. See you guys shortly.